How's it going, my friends? Back with another video. I'm in the studio today waiting for IKEA to show up and deliver our desks. We have a 1 to 9 p.m. delivery window time. So I'm sitting here for 8 hours and I'm trying to think, what can I make a video about that's really going to, or what can I make a video about that's really helped me come up with better posing and just hone my skills when I'm putting couples together. Now, at the risk of sounding too like much of like a, I don't know, like a woo-woo, like, philosophy guru or something like that, which I'm really not trying to come across. I'm just trying to give you guys the tips that have really helped me. One of the biggest tips and one of the biggest things, if you've been watching my channel, is I talk about inspiration and imagination all the time. And the importance of having an imagination that you don't just expect to be there, but something that you're critically focused on, and you're treating it more of like a muscle. You're going to the gym periodically to flex your imagination and you're really working it. And how important that is. I talk about how important it is all the time because it has changed my photography. The ability to project images and scenarios that are coming to me in the future, like shoots that I have coming up, the ability to really project my ideas into the future with these couples before I get on site with them has just been a game changer for me. And that's so difficult because as photographers, we want to pick up the cameras, we want to always be doing something, fiddling with something, or, tech-centric, touching physical things in the world. But I'm telling you that there needs to be a balance. You have to be able to go inside your mind and conjure up different interesting scenarios, poses, situations that are going to be pleasing. Because I'm telling you right now, if you don't work on this, if you don't work on your imagination, your ability to come up with imaginatives, and your ability to have an imagination that can come up with scenarios for you, you're going to be stuck with the same poses over and over again. And there are times for safe shots. Absolutely. When you're shooting a wedding, couples, engagements, families, things like that, these people are not professional models. So, if any of you guys have worked with professional models, you know that when they step on site, your job as a photographer is to get the lighting right and to get interesting compositions. And then the model's job is to come up with the different looks, okay? When you're working with a model, you don't have to tell them, hey, give me a new look, or, turn a different way or something like that. You're just flowing and working together. And you focus on the composition. But when you're working with clients who have paid you at a wedding or a family shoot or something like that, you're in control of it. They're literally, you pull out the camera and they sit there and they look at you like, okay, tell me exactly what to do because I have no idea. And if you're unable to have an imagination that's honed and sharpened, then you're just going to be relying on the safe shots, okay, and the safe poses. And those get old really, really quickly. I mean, look, when I go to weddings, I do take the safe shots, absolutely, like the forehead to forehead, the bride's back to the groom's chest, and, holding hands and walking and things like that. But at every wedding, I'm definitely trying to come up with something different and edgy and new. And the only way that you can do that without getting completely overwhelmed and flustered and frustrated is to have a session before these photo shoots and be able to have a mind that's coming up with different ideas, okay? Something that when you get onto the shoot, it's not completely foreign to you and you've got kind of into a lane. Now, before I get too off track, something that needs to be said is endless possibilities are really the enemy of creativity. People think that you should just have a billion different options and things will be easier, but in reality, a creator has a mind that's really expansive, and so they need to hit some type of boundary with their mind and find the walls that they need to work within. And that will give you a much better, an easier time coming up with something creative within the confines of a established boundary, if that makes sense. That's why I always preach, when you're first starting off with weddings, use 2 focal ranges, prime lenses, because if you're using a 35 and 85 or a 28 and a 58 or something like that, you're within a box, and then you have to learn how to create within that stuff. So it shaves off a bunch of different options for you. So you get to say, okay, this is the stuff in front of me that I get to work with, and let me create with that. And when you create some boundaries, it's a lot easier to come up with something. So how would I go into a shoot or a wedding and come up with something different and something unique that hasn't been done a million times? Well, I would have these sessions, okay? What I would do is I would go into Instagram and we'd hit the search bar and then just type in interior design. And what you'll get is you'll get like a million pictures of rooms without people in them, okay? And they're not all just like crazy, castles that are just like completely like wild that most people aren't gonna see. There's a lot of just regular rooms of people like interior designing their normal spaces. And they're all different. And what I would do is I would go through this feed and I would project my couples into these spaces. And I would spend some time and I would be like, okay, I'll put the bride solo in this area. I'll light her from this area. I'll put the bride and the groom against this wall. Or I'll face them towards the sun. Or there's no light in here, there's no windows, I'll put a light here. And then I would just project my couples into these spaces, and I would go room by room by room and just come up with different poses. And I am telling you, this was a game changer for me. It really was, because after I started doing that, I would walk into a new venue or even a venue that I've been in before, and I would start to see familiar angles. And I would start to get more, dynamic and more complicated with my posing and make it more of a storytelling situation where I worked with the room to create interesting angles and interesting perspectives that I had already thought about with my couples before I got there. I'm telling you, this is a huge, huge high level thing that you can do to transform your photography, because it's almost impossible to do on site. When you're working with a couple on the wedding day or a family shoot or even an engagement shoot, you don't have infinite time. Even if you do have infinite time for the shoot, you have a very limited amount of time to work with, to try different things that aren't working before they start to get awkward and the vibe starts to change. So one of the main things is you got to keep it fresh and flowing. And yeah, you have some leeway for experimentation, but at a wedding, you get 20, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes if you're super lucky to come up with a bunch of different interesting shots. So how are you going to do that if you're just going in there and you have no preconceived ideas? So many great photographers have talked about this, going into their shoots with some idea. You're on some type of road, some predetermined path. The shots aren't all exactly laid out. Sometimes they are, but most of the time, you're just going in with a general idea and a general familiarity of some ideas that you've come up with, okay? Because all rooms are different, but they're also the same in a lot of ways too. You get 4 walls, you know what I mean? Floor and a ceiling, if you're inside. A lot of these buildings, yeah, they look different, but they have they have the same angles, and you can learn a lot by just looking at a room for a long time and then pre-visualizing how you would place your couples within them. I really hope that you guys try this, because it is a super, super helpful, exercise. Don't just wing it. Don't just go into a shoot with clients and then just, I'll just see what I come up with. Actually go in there with some preconceived ideas and like a sharp imagination that you've actually worked on for a couple days or at least one day before, and your photos will elevate. They definitely will, because you don't want a huge portfolio of the same shots. You really don't. Not only is that going to get boring to your audience and your clients, but it'll get boring to you, which is the most important thing. Like, I made a post on my Instagram recently, and the most important thing with photography is to have fun while you're doing it. And to consistently have fun over time is experimenting and living on that edge where you're pushing yourself past your, what you've done yesterday. So try this exercise, and if it helps, please let me know, because a lot of times, I give these tips out and you guys are awesome in the comments. I get a lot of comments, and you guys are really active and giving me feedback and everything. But I want to know the stuff I talk about, especially higher level technique stuff. I want to know what is actually helping you, and if you guys are actually practicing the stuff that I'm talking about, because I can tell you honestly, 100%, this has really helped me. So I hope it helps. Until the next video, my friends.